Thy word have I hid in mine heart. Thy word have I hid in mine heart, that I might not sin against thee.
Hello, everybody. In this episode, we're looking at Demas and Judas, two different failures. I have some notes down here, so if I look down, I'm trying to look down on my note to help me stay on track. Two men, both were close to great servants of God, both had opportunities many people only dream about, both witnessed the work of God up close, and both are remembered for tragic choices. One was Judas Iscariot, the other was Demas. Judas walked with Jesus, Demas worked alongside Paul. Yet both men became warnings for future generations. But were their failures the same? Did they fall in the same way? And what can we learn from the differences between them? Today, we will compare Demas and Judas, not to speculate beyond scripture, but to learn the lessons God has preserved for us. Let's begin. Both men were close to God's work. One of the most sobering truths about both Judas and Demas is this: they were not outsiders. Judas was one of the 12. Luke 6:13-16 records that Jesus chose 12 apostles and Judas was among them. For about 3 years, Judas traveled with Jesus. He heard Jesus teach. He saw miracles. He saw things that Jesus do. He witnessed the feeding of the 5,000, for example. He saw the blind receive sight. He heard the Sermon on the Mount. He was near the greatest ministry the world has ever known. Demas also lived close to God's work. Paul mentions him in Colossians 4:14. Luke, the beloved physician, and Demas greet you. Then in Philemon 1:24, Paul calls Demas my fellow laborers. Demas was not far away from Christian ministry. He was part of it. This reminds us of an important truth. Being close to spiritual things is not the same as having a guarded heart. A person can attend church, read the Bible, serve in ministry, and still allow dangerous desires to grow unnoticed. Judas was tempted by money. The Bible gives us clear insight into Judas's weakness. John 12:4-6 says, Then saith one of his disciples, Judas Iscariot, Why was not this ointment sold for 300 pence and given to the poor? John then explains, This he said not that he cared for the poor, but because he was a thief and had the bag. Judas was entrusted with money, but greed grew in his heart. Eventually, Matthew 26:14-15 tells us that Judas agreed to betray Jesus for 30 pieces or silver. What began as hidden greed became open betrayal. Sin often grows quietly before it becomes visible. Demas was tempted by the word. Paul says something different about Demas. 2 Timothy 4:10 says, "For Demas hath forsaken me, having loved this present world." Notice the difference. The Bible identifies Judas' love for money. The Bible identifies Demas' love for the word. Money may have been part of Demas's attraction. Comfort may have been part of it. Safety may have been part of it. Success may have been part of it. Scripture doesn't specify. It simply tells us that his heart became attached to the present word. Both men reveal a similar danger. Something other than God captured their affection. Both failures began in the heart. Long before Judas betrayed Jesus, greed was growing. Long before Demas left Paul, worldly affection was growing. That's why Proverbs 4:23 says, "Keep thy heart with all diligence, for out of it are the issues of life." The heart is where spiritual battles are won or lost. People often focus on outward actions. God looks deeper. What are we loving? What are we desiring? What are we pursuing? These questions matter because actions begin in the heart. Judas betrayed Jesus. Demas forsook Paul. Here we see an important difference. Judas directly betrayed Jesus. Matthew 26:48-49 recalls Judas identifying Jesus with a kiss. What a tragic moment. An act that looked like affection became an act of betrayal. Demas, however, is not described as betraying Christ in the same way. Paul says, "Demas hath forsaken me." Demas abandoned Paul and the work of ministry. That is serious, but scripture does not describe it in exactly the same terms as Judas's betrayal. We should allow the Bible to make the distinction it makes. Both stories warn us about misplaced love. Judas loved money more than Christ. Demas loved this present world more than faithful service. Different temptation, different circumstances, but the same root problem: misplaced affection. Jesus said in Matthew 22:37, "Thou shalt love thy Lord thy God with all thy heart." God deserves first place. Whenever something else takes that place, danger begins. Satan's strategy has not changed. The enemy does not always attack through obvious evil. Sometimes he offers comfort, security, popularity, money, pleasure, recognition, success. These things are not always sinful in themselves. The danger comes when they become more valuable to us than obedience to God. That is why believers must continually examine their heart. What should we learn then? Judas warns us about heathen greed. Demas warns us about heathen worldliness. Both remind us that spiritual danger often develops slowly. That is why we need daily prayer, regular Bible reading, honest self evaluation, self examination, fellowship with other believers, and above all, a growing love for Christ. Because the heart that treasures Christ above all is less likely to be captured by lesser things. In conclusion, Demas and Judas were different men. Their failures were different. Their stories are not identical, but both stand as warnings. One loved money, the other loved this present world. And both remind us that the greatest battles are often battles of affection. What do we love most? What captures our hearts? What shapes our directions? These questions matter because where our treasure is, there our heart will be also. In our next episode, we will compare Demas and Lot, loving the word. And until then, guard your heart, stay close to Christ, and finish well.
Thy word have I hid in mine heart, that I might not sin against thee.
Watch out for our next video, or watch one of our favorites here.